Okay, Michelle, you want to try?
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start putting some little bit of parliamentary procedure in here, but not too much. Want to start with roll call. So we'll do roll call, but then we'll also do the good news, which I think we all very much enjoy. So thank you, Marisol, for that tradition. So I'm going to start with Antonio, and he is not here. He's actually on his honeymoon. So I excused him, if you can believe that. Okay, so Lucia. Lucia's not with us. I saw Alicia. Alicia, you want to share some good news?
Hi, everyone. My good news is that my family finally got to come down and visit Colorado after 2 years. And so I was very excited to see, well, almost 2 years since COVID. So I was very excited to see my family and hang out and go play in the mountains. We had a really good time. So fun stuff. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, Brian.
Hello all, Brian Carroll here. Just yesterday I got back from an 8-day llama packing trip and I survived the wilderness. So that's some good news. It was a lot of fun.
Wow. Wonderful. Okay, Jake Cohen.
Hi, I, after 2 years of looking at a spot where a friend dramatically spilled red wine all over my ceiling somehow, I finally have repainted my ceiling and it is awesome not to see it anymore.
Excellent. Alan.
Hi, Alan Cogill, District 1. I'm really excited because we're getting a protected bike lane installed on West 23rd Avenue starting this month. And after having gone up and down that for years, I'm really excited to have a safe way to get into downtown with my kids. So thank you guys on the DOTI staff for doing that.
Wonderful. Okay, Michael. Michael, do you go by Michael? Mike? You with us? He's going to go by Michael now. Okay, so Michael's not here. Paul's not here, but he let me know he's not going to make it. Ray.
Raymond Gutierrez. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Well, I've been tearing down drywall all day trying to demo a small bedroom in my house. I'm grateful I haven't hurt myself or electrocuted myself in the process.
Excellent. Okay, Christopher Johnson.
And Michelle, Michael did just join, by the way, so you can circle back.
Go back to him. Okay, sounds great.
Great. Well, my good news is that after maybe 15 years of trying, my wife has quit smoking for 30 days. I know. I'm so proud of her. Yeah.
Wow, that's a big one. I'm going to circle back to Michael. Michael, you just joined us. He's on mute. Okay, then I'm going to keep going. Katie Leonard. Katie, are you with us? Okay, how about Joe? Joe Levy.
Yeah, my good news is we had first time I've been back for high holiday services, and it was outside and it wasn't as bad as usual. So I'm looking forward to Thursday, and hopefully that won't be as bad as usual. And I'll get that out of the way for the year. So that's good news for me.
Wonderful. Aileen.
Aileen Mccallum. My good news is we hired a kitchen designer, which I feel like is a critical part of our big home improvement project, because you don't hire the kitchen designer, then you can't design what your kitchen's going to look like, and you can't get the contractors to give you a decent bid, and you also can't order cabinets or appliances. So even though it seems really silly that that's kind of the start of our project, at least we've hired them, and we will get going on our kitchen remodel project in 6 months.
Oh, wow. Kurt. Kurt Morrison. Chris Pacheco, I saw you.
Hey guys, Chris Pacheco. Good news for the week. Got back from Steamboat yesterday, and for the first time, I've been going to Steamboat for a long time. Me and my wife actually commissioned or ordered art from one of the local galleries in Steamboat that matches some of our other art that we have from around the state. So we're really excited about that. It's taken a while, but we're there.
Wonderful. Okay, Jonathan.
Hey, yes, sorry, getting unmuted. Jonathan Patoco, MPAC. I guess good news comes with bad news. Bad news, I walked into a shelf in my garage this weekend, as you can see on my forehead. Good news is it's very shallow and healing quickly. So this shouldn't be a long-term imposition. One of the few injuries you can't hide on virtual meetings, I think.
Wonderful. Tangier.
Hello, everyone. Well, let's see. Good news. Well, the air has been clearer the last couple of days. I feel like that's good news. I found myself appreciating that multiple times over the last couple of days.
Wonderful. Yeah, me too. Okay, Manny. I saw you.
Sorry about that. Yes, good news is several family members who were hesitant to get the vaccine finally decided they were. So looking forward to that. Until they get the card, I will be at peace. So it's good news for me.
That's great news. So I'm going to circle back to, I know Michael's here because I see him, but I don't know if he can unmute himself. Michael, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
Sorry about that. I had something happened. I'm back. Everything's fine.
Okay. Do you have any good news for us?
Not really.
Okay. You're here with us. That's good news. Let's check and Katie Leonard and Kurt Morrison. Have you joined us? I didn't see. Okay. I'll keep watching out for everybody. I know that we had our, we put in our 2 meetings. You can miss 3 meetings, but we can talk about that later. So that's why we're kind of keeping track here. Okay.
Hi. I'd like to say hello.
Oh, Lucia, I'm sorry. I had called you. There you are. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry
I'm
about
sorry.
Lucia.
I was a couple minutes late. I apologize, but I'm Lucia Brown, representing District 7 in the Baker neighborhood. And my good news is it looks like, I'm not 100% sure, if there's someone from DOTI, maybe they can confirm, it looks like they're doing the initial work to put in a traffic light at 5th and Broadway.
I just wrote that down. If somebody here can't, go ahead.
I believe you're correct. I was just down there speaking with some vendors.
Good to have Nick on here.
Whoop.
Yay, Dottie. If everybody next to your name could put either what the district you're from or the mayor, and then Dottie, could you also put that you're from Dottie? Because we've got a lot of Dottie people on board that I have not introduced, but I'll have them introduced when we get to Denver Moves Everyone. Please. Okay, turning it back.
Great. So today, what we're going to be talking about is Denver Moves, which is very exciting. We should have some Denver Moves folks here on board. Then we are going to do elections. As you all saw, we have several people who were nominated, and so we're going to choose our pro tem chairs. We're going to make sure that you are all set up. We've been doing a lot of bylaws work, but just to codify that today. And then we will close with some next steps and adjourn. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to the Denver Moves folks so we can have as much time as possible to work through that.
Sam, you want to take over?
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Piper, and just give us a couple minutes as we get our presentation lined up, and then we'll all go through and introduce ourselves. So Evan, do you actually mind sharing your screen?
Yeah, if I might ask the host of the Zoom meeting to enable screen sharing, we can go ahead and bring up a presentation.
Okay, Evan, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Just wait till that pops up and gets in presenter mode. Awesome. So my name is Sam Piper. I'm a transportation planner with DOTI, and I'm managing our long-range strategic transportation plan, which is we're calling Denver Moves Everyone 2050, our vision to move people, goods, and services. And before we dig in, I did want to ask, Nick, do you want to say any words before we commence our presentation?
Sure, thank you, Sam. I'll be just real quick. Again, Nick Williams, I'm the Deputy Manager for Internal. I think I got unmuted or muted there. Nick Williams, Deputy Manager, DOTI here, Internal and External Affairs. Yeah, excited to have Sam and the team here today. We've talked about Denver Moves Everyone, the Strategic Transportation Plan, and kind of what a key role this advisory committee will play through the development of that. So yeah, excited to hear the presentation on that and for some robust discussion. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for setting the stage. And so on the next slide, we just wanted to give you an overview of who you're going to hear from this evening. So again, we're here to provide an overview about Denver Moves Everyone 2050, and I'm joined by Jennifer Hillhouse, Evan Enerson, and Julie Skeen. And Jen, would you mind just saying a couple words to kind of frame the conversation this evening?
Yes, thanks, Sam. And apologies, my computer is going through migration, so I don't have a camera, but hopefully by the end, in a couple of minutes, I'll get it back. But good evening, DOTI Advisory Board. We're really excited. This is my first time to be in front of you. So really excited to bring this really, really important effort and get your guidance and engagement throughout this process. You're going to hear a lot from the team about the details and really some pointed questions for you. But I did just want to set the stage that, it's been since 2008 since we've developed a strategic transportation plan. And as you know, a lot has happened in our city, whether it's growth, crisis that has occurred, economic stability, so many different pressures on our city has changed. And so this is the right time to really lean in and figure out what we need to do, where investments need to be placed in order to meet our mobility goals. So just wanted to echo, Nick, your voice is extremely important in this process, and we will be in front of you multiple times. I know several of you are engaging in some of the other processes that we have, but just really excited to be here tonight. And please open up, we hope for engagement, ask questions as you need. And then we'll also prompt you if needed as well. So thanks again for having us.
Thank you so much, Jen. And so just so everyone on the committee appreciates our kind of organizational structure to deliver this project, I did want to emphasize that again, Jen and I, obviously we work for DOTI, we're employees of the city. But to deliver a big project like this, we do rely on consulting resources. And so Evan Enerson is our overall consulting project manager. Evan, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Sam, and thank you all for the opportunity to come here and present. I'm Evan Enerson. I'm with the firm Cambridge Systematics, based here in Denver. Longtime Denver resident. Really excited to be working on this effort. We do have a number of really great qualified firms supporting this overall effort with a significant experience on projects and plans across the city. So again, very excited to be part of this overall planning team. I think a key element of this team is our communications and engagement leads, Julie Skeen, who can introduce herself now.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Julie Skeen. I'm with CIG. We are a small woman-owned business that's been working for City and County of Denver for over 10 years and specializing in infrastructure and transportation projects. So as Evan and Sam and Jen said, this is a wonderful team. This is an exciting opportunity. We're excited to come and share it with you.
Awesome. Thanks, team, for introducing yourself. And on the next slide, we'll provide an overview of what we're hoping to cover this evening. So we want to frame what is Denver Moves Everyone. Jen noted it's been a long time since our organization did a strategic transportation plan, and our organization has changed a lot, both becoming Department of Transportation Infrastructure and the city around us growing and evolving. So we want to really emphasize why it's so critical to plan now. And then, how are we planning? What are we hoping to deliver? What are the values and benefits both DOTI and the city is going to gain through going through this strategic transportation planning process? We want to emphasize where we are in terms of the project schedule. So we'll walk through our schedule. We'll show you that we're still in our first phase of project development, and we're seeking to verify the plan's vision and goals during this phase. So Evan's going to walk through what work we've been doing around visioning and goal setting to date, and seek your feedback on draft goal topics. And then really affirm what comes next. How do we plan to continue to engage this group throughout the Denver Moves Everyone planning process? These little notes are where we're hoping to pause and ask you all questions and have discussion throughout the presentation. So your role in Denver Moves Everyone is really important. As Jen noted, we are working to establish this committee and roles and responsibilities as you interface with projects that DOTI is leading. And so Denver Moves Everyone is really our primary comprehensive planning effort that the organization is going through right now. And it's a great opportunity as your committee is getting stood up to integrate and really help to shape and inform our planning process. So we're just wanted to kind of go through some high level chartering or roles and responsibilities so that expectations are clear. And so on the left here is kind of our objective. And we're really hoping that this DOTI Advisory Committee helps to guide the plan's development. And by that, we mean provide strategic and direction in terms of guiding key milestones for the plan. So tonight, we're going to talk about vision and goals. And so we're really looking for your strategic feedback. You represent different council districts or the mayor, different perspectives based on your own lived experiences and your community's experiences with transportation. We really hope you bring that valuable feedback to the table so that we can integrate it into the plan's next steps. Really, it's benefiting from your insights to illuminate those issues and opportunities that we need to plan for. This plan is seeking to establish our framework for the next 30 years. So it's going to have an incredible impact in our community. And we really need broad integration of feedback to ensure we're planning for the right future. And then we hope that you represent broad perspectives. You represent a council district or the mayor. So while you're bringing your own personal insights and experiences to the table, we're also asking that you can share your broader community's issues and opportunities that transportation does change depending on where you live or where your neighborhood or which council district you represent. So we're really hoping that you can broaden your voice to represent your community. And then just as always, being respectful, open and thoughtful, we'll have opportunities for discussion, and we'll just ask one person speaking at a time and really see this as an opportunity to improve how transportation works and functions in our city. So it's exciting work, and we really look forward to your partnership in helping to craft this planning process. And in terms of the DOTI Advisory Committee engagement, we'll talk about the schedule at a few different phases during this presentation, but the point is that we really have 4 phases of the project development. First, where we're looking to establish the plan's foundation, working through existing conditions. How have we grown? What is the pressure that our transportation system is facing today? And use this phase to really establish the plan's vision and the strategic goals. Then we move into the fall, and this is where we call finding our path forward. And during this phase of the project, we want to understand different future scenarios that could play out. We want to understand kind of that baseline of if things were just a straight line, where would we end up in 2050? What if we had more growth? What if Denver didn't grow as much into the future? What implications would that have on our transportation system? And we're on the bottom of this graphic, really it's that prompt of how this committee can help influence that important next step. So identify how we should transform our transportation system to recognize that the future is uncertain, that change is going to happen, and we want to understand which changes are more probable so that we can do a better job of anticipating the future, managing risk, and really navigating all of those potential paths to eventually reach the goals that we establish in the plan. So that purple phase will go into the winter of 2022, and then we go into the third phase of the project. This is where we really identify those options for future transportation improvements. And so we will be developing a fiscally constrained investment program. You sometimes hear that called a capital improvement program. And so we want to frame is a 5-year investment strategy that identifies those projects and programs that are most aligned with making progress on the goals and the vision of this plan. So we'll have a fiscally constrained investment program, and then beyond that, making recommendations between the 5 and 10, 10 and 15, and then that 20 all the way out to 30. What do we continually need to make investment in, policy changes, so that we stay on track through the plan's development all the way to the year 2050. And then we'll move into the final phase of the project, and this is what we call tracking our progress. And through this planning process, we want DOTI to become more accountable. We want to establish recommendations, a vision, goals, objectives, and metrics that we can track to determine how much success we are making on the commitments that we establish through this plan. And we want to ensure that we have the ability to track the success of implementing the plan's recommendations. And in this third phase of the project, while we will be finishing Denver Moves Everyone, publishing the final plan, we're also setting up a series of processes by which this can remain a living process. Really, how can we integrate Denver Moves Everyone and the recommendations into the way that we do business at the city? And how can we report out on our successes so that we can say, yes, we're on track, we're hitting our goals, or if we're not, what changes might we need to make to get back on track so that we can continually make progress on the plan's goals? So we want to learn from you. How can we be more accountable and transparent on our progress? And so I just wanted to affirm that we anticipate engaging with this committee during every major phase of the project to seek feedback on kind of that fundamental phase and the question that we're asking. We're asking similar questions with the broader public, with our stakeholder committees, but really specifically wanting to hear your perspectives on these key questions as well. Over the 2-year planning process, we're anticipating having our work completed by November of 2022. And so what is Denver Moves Everyone? You've probably had conversations around what is the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So I'll just say quickly that DOTI is responsible for that space between buildings, which we call the public right-of-way. And there's obviously a lot of elements that are placed within the public right-of-way that we have influence and purview over. Everything from the street signs and the asphalt that we pave our streets with, to how space is divided, how much space is allocated for sidewalks, for bus lanes, for vehicle lanes, for bikeways, as well as the infrastructure that's not as easy to see, but really important to making our system function and flow. That's the fiber optic cables, for instance, that connect our traffic signals and make them smarter infrastructure, as well as our stormwater drainage. Our streets actually act as stormwater channels, flowing water that comes into our city outwardly. So this plan, though, really is focused on those transportation elements. So everything within the DOT side of DOTI's responsibilities. And as Jen noted and kind of kicked off, our responsibilities have evolved significantly since the last time DOTI undertook a strategic transportation plan back in 2008. And just a couple of the highlights over our 12 years since we did that plan is we completed our first bicycle master plan, Denver Moves Bikes. We then updated that in 2015. We hired the city's very first pedestrian planner, and that individual was responsible for establishing the first pedestrian program. And now we have a pedestrian intersection program where we target investments proactively to make crossings safer, as well as constructing sidewalks, both adjacent to city property, as well as along private property. So those responsibilities have evolved significantly since the last plan. Our Vision Zero action plan was completed. We became a Vision Zero city with a commitment to eliminate serious injuries and fatalities on our streets to zero by the year 2030. And then in 2019, we published Denver Moves Transit, as well as pedestrians and trails. So our pedestrian and trails plan, our transit plan. And by becoming DOTI in 2020, transitioning from Public Works, we gained the opportunity through our charter change to actually operate transit. So we've had several progressive steps to becoming an agency that's better equipped to plan for transit, both with a transportation planning team. Now our charter has the option to operate transit, and we hired our first transit director within DOTI. So a lot of change with the responsibilities that we manage within the public right-of-way. And all of this oriented at making a system that moves all people and provides better balance in our transportation system. And we just wanted to emphasize that our Denver Moves Everyone is a coordinated planning effort. This is going to become DOTI's North Star, our main document that really helps us to orient investments so that we're making those investments in the places that need them most to move the needle on our goals. And all of our sub plans that I'll discuss tonight, Denver Moves Bikes, Trails, and Transit. Those nest underneath Denver Moves Everyone. These plans will be updated in the future. So think about this establishing process so that recommendations can be fit within the framework that we're establishing in Denver Moves Everyone. This plan will then be aligned with our One Water plan. So I discussed this plan is focused on the DOT. Think about the One Water plan as really being the North Star strategic plan for the I side of DOTI. And then this plan becomes aligned with Blueprint Denver, that's Community Planning and Development Strategic Plan, and then Game Plan for Denver Parks and Recreation. All of this planning effort nested underneath the Denver Right comprehensive planning initiative to ensure that all of our efforts are coordinated. We'll make recommendations that can't be addressed just within transportation, requires partnership and collaboration across our peer city agencies. And so it's important to recognize how this plan is establishing those points of coordination and augmenting the coordination points we already have established today. And sometimes we get this question about how, really functionally, how does this plan fit within the framework of the plans that we've already conducted? And so we've developed this graphic to communicate that Denver Moves Pedestrians and Trails, Bicycles, and Transit. They focus really on one section of that public right-of-way that I discussed when we kicked off the meeting. And so, again, these plans are kind of organizing space within the purview of that mode. And on the next slide, the major distinction of Denver Moves Everyone is it's planning the entire transportation system, all of that space between the public right-of-way. There is limited space, and we need to maximize how we program that space to have the highest and best use of the right-of-way for the greatest amount of people. We're a growing city. We are getting more congested, and we need to think critically about how we organize space so that we can keep people moving into the future and provide more opportunities for transportation, more transportation choice, as well as ensure that people in all areas of the city have equitable access to high quality transportation options. And so what will this plan result in? Denver Moves Everyone will result in vision and goals to prioritize DOTI's transportation investments. I talked about that fiscally constrained prioritized list, as well as looking into the longer term. So prioritized list of transportation investments. We're still working exactly what the range will be on that shorter term list, but generally 4 to 6 years. And then looking into the long-term policy and program recommendations so that we can stay on track all the way to the year 2050. And so how are we going to be accomplishing all of that? We talked about our kind of high level schedule and how the DOTI Advisory Committee will be integrated during each of the major phases of the project. And we just wanted to reemphasize those 4 stages of the project. Again, we roughly kicked off early summer 2021, and our goal is to have major elements of the project completed by November of 2022. And I'll highlight quickly the deliverables that we will be producing during each of these phases that are helpful tools to be aware of so that you can gain an understanding of really what's the value and the benefits that we're gaining that we didn't have prior by investing in this planning process. And so we'll seek to establish goals, objectives, and metrics. Though that is what becomes what we call our performance framework. DOTI inherently wants to become a more performance-driven organization. This is a common theme across public works agencies that have transitioned to DOTs. You'll also see state DOTs talking a lot in contemporary circles about becoming data-driven organizations, and that performance framework, having metrics that are time-bound and specific that can track the progress on objectives, which are a little bit longer in scope, but eventually having those as tools, as benchmarks to ensure we're making progress on the goals and eventually reaching our vision. So we'll establish that outline during this first phase of the project. We'll be publishing our state of the system report. This is going to be a transformational document that emphasizes all of the changes that our city has seen, both looking back 100 years, as well as a focused look back at the last 10 years to emphasize the pressures and the strains that our transportation system is under, the changes that our organization has seen in recent years, and establish those baselines that we can use to measure success from as we look to the future. The second major phase of this project, we wanted to emphasize we're investing for the first time in travel demand modeling capabilities. And so we're taking what is the DRCOG, the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization, has a travel model which is used to understand land use changes as well as transportation demand changes over long periods of time. And for instance, as land use changes, it has an implication on the way our transportation system works. So we're taking that regional model, which is well tuned for a really big area, but maybe not so well for Denver. And we're making tweaks to it so that it performs better analysis in support of Denver Moves Everyone. And this is a tool that we're not just using for Denver Moves Everyone, we're actually hoping to gain the capability to continually make investments in that tool well into the future. It helps us to become a more sophisticated organization so that we have better predictability about the future, and we can minimize risk and have a better sense of the reality that the future is uncertain, but it's better to plan with data for the uncertain future than hope we're moving in the right direction. During the third phase of the project, I've hit this a bunch, so I won't spend more time. This is really where we get into the really important work of identifying that fiscally constrained investment program, those projects that we hope to build and the sequencing of them so that we can make progress on the recommendations of this plan. And not only are we looking to build projects, we also want to identify what are those other strategies that are necessary to gain the maximum return on a specific investment. And we use kind of Colfax BRT as a good example. If we just built that project in isolation and didn't perhaps couple that with transportation demand management strategies, working with businesses to incentivize those businesses to encourage people to use that new bus rapid transit service, or have campaigns that explain the benefits of using that new bus service, we probably wouldn't get as high as ridership. So we need to couple our project investments with strategies that help really to ensure people are using and understand the benefits of these alternative transportation choices. And then really tracking our progress, launching those dashboards that help us to understand how successful we are in implementing the plan's recommendations. With that, Julie, I'll hand it off to you to talk about our engagement approach.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. What is so exciting to me about this project is it is a very technical project. There is a lot of information that we're gathering, but the foundation of what we're doing is our outreach approach. It is essentially the foundation that we're building the entire plan from, and that is an exciting thing for me, especially as an outreach person. We have 3 prongs for our outreach approach. And as you see them here, citywide digital outreach, that is our online tools. And we have a whole series of online tools. DenverMovesEveryone.com. Please go on and check out our current engagement tool. We're making them really fun and interactive with a lot of graphics and a lot of visualizations and maps and history, nuggets from history, things along those lines. So that's really our broad brush. We're trying to attract as many folks as possible through our online engagement. But hey, we recognize not everybody is comfortable engaging online, and you're not going to get the diversity necessarily that we want from engaging online. So we have two other prongs for our engagement approach. One is our committee and partner networks. You are part of that, and we're very excited to be working with you to, again, come to you periodically and get your strategic thoughts and advice on our project. We're also doing a whole series of focus groups, and we have an external steering committee called our think tank. So we're continuing, as Sam said, we have a series of questions, a series of data through each phase that we're trying to get. We ask on the online tools, we ask in our committees, and then we ask in our grassroots activities. So this is really where we roll up our sleeves and we go and meet folks where they are. So this is pop-up events where you can join an existing farmer's market or a Montbello family night out, or we've done PTA meetings. So it's just been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to really get into the communities and have these discussions in a face-to-face approach. To your right, we see reach metrics and targeted outreach. So what we're doing is we're really tracking this. So what we do is we're doing all these concurrently. So we start with an online tool. We're taking a look at where we're getting feedback. We track the geolocation of that feedback, and then we're identifying holes. Those holes, we're going to our committees and partner networks and saying, hey, we haven't heard for this geographic area or this type of person. Can you help us? And then we're actually identifying those geographic holes and really targeting our grassroots efforts towards those. So it's a pretty sophisticated approach. It's been great to see the results and how we're analyzing them on a week-by-week basis. We sit with Sam and we look at our results and we say, okay, who are we not hearing from? Who are we hearing from? How can we tweak things? And all of that, if you look on the left, is all surrounded. And I'll talk a little bit about more of our inclusive voices approach, because our goal is to get a lot of feedback from a lot of people, but we want it to be diverse and we want it to be as much as possible truly representative of the constituents of the city and county of Denver. Next slide, please. So here's just examples, just give you a hint of some of these groups that we're working with the committee and partner networks. Something we recognize is so important is internal integration within the city as well. Cities are large organizations doing a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. We want this plan to be reflective of all of that, because one thing we recognize is that transportation touches every aspect of our lives. But it's just not internal. We're also, as examples, we're doing everything from, safety. Let's talk to the police department. How about schools? How about the Denver Public Library, community centers, the airport, visit dinner? So again, what you'll see in your group, in our think tank, and then a whole series of focus groups that we've identified, focused on very specific technical areas to truly make sure we're getting that representative industry feedback as well as representative feedback from the community. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our diverse and inclusive voices approach. This is where we're really making sure and doing everything that we can to make sure that the feedback is truly representative of the citizens of the city and county of Denver. So as you'll see, it is inclusive and it is intertwined with our three phases, or our three outreach approaches. So we have our citywide. We're making sure the tool is in every language that you could think of. So it's really open to different individuals with different backgrounds and different language. But we're also doing things like, multimedia and our media, and we're reaching out to rec centers and libraries. Everything's in multimedia, everything's in multiple languages, doing some screensavers, again, promoting those online tools. Our committee and partner networks, we're doing something really exciting. We're actually partnering with another group within the city that's working on a racial equity toolkit. And it's been a fantastic opportunity to sort of align ourselves and create a process for DME, but also for the city as DOTI moves forward with other outreach efforts. So we're holding a series of creative input sessions. These have been fantastic. They're smaller groups made up of diverse representation from the city, and where we're really getting into a lot of storytelling and very informal discussions. So it's not just come in, click this, tell us yes, tell us no. It's tell us why. Tell us why you see that as a barrier. Let's talk about that. So those are creative input sessions have been fantastic. We're doing focus groups and coordinating with all the topical focus groups. We're going to have one that is very focused on community as well. And then from our grassroots, we are multilingual at every pop-up event. We are making sure that we have individuals moving forward, that really can communicate, because again, it is about not just making sure people know about the study, but really making sure that we're having meaningful discussions and dialogue and hearing those stories and really understanding what those issues are, so that we can bring them back to the overall technical group and say, this is what we're hearing. We really need to make sure we're factoring these in. So this diverse and inclusive voices approach it's exciting, it's new, and it's something that City and County of Denver really wants to keep pushing forward on all studies, not just this one. Next slide, please. So how are we doing? We're feeling pretty good. We're getting some really good results. This is everything so far. Our online engagement has been phenomenal. We've got almost 6,000 people that have participated, 2,900 that have actually stepped through the answered all the survey questions, told us their demographic data, all the rest of it. Excellent social engagement through social media, and again, in different languages. That's almost 13,000 touch points we've had there. We're doing, lots of events. We're going to do a huge push on events. We're going to have quite a few more over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's been great to see the world opening up a little bit so that we can actually go out and have some face-to-face discussions. And then you can see, each of these, we have an opportunity to do some, physically come and put stickers on onto a board to help us understand your values, things along those lines. So, and we got a few cable news stories, and we're doing a series of email blasts regularly as well to this great networking group we have. So we feel like these results are very strong, and we're continuing to really look at them, to look at our metrics and see how we can improve as we move forward. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these have been really fun. It's been great to get out in the community again, really attend opportunities to attend, whether it's a farmer's market or a PTA meeting or a food bank, food trucks, you name it, we are signing up. So, feel free to reach out to Sam or to put anything in the chat if you've got events coming up that you think that would be useful to us, because this has been a fantastic opportunity, and really the quality of the engagement at the grassroots level has been excellent. And then in the top left, you can see an example of what our tool looks like right now, DenverMovesEveryone.com. Please go check it out. Next slide, please. So part of what we're looking at, as I mentioned, I think this is so cool. What we're doing is these dots on this map represent feedback we've gotten from our most recent engagement tool. And so you see how it lays out. You can see where you have gaps. You can see where people are really participating. You can see where we're not getting as much participation. We are working very collaboratively with a technical working group, which represents all of DOTI's outreach individuals, and they have been guiding us through this. They look at this map and they say, yeah, that's about what we expect. That's what we see when we go out. And so it's been great to work with this group and really compare notes and compare relationships and who knows somebody in this area. So what you'll see is the blue eyes. That's where we're starting to fill in with our grassroots events to really make sure that we don't have any holes. But two things I wanted to highlight. One is something we're feeling really good about is we always ask the question, hey, how often do you participate in a planning study like this? And we're getting about half of the folks are saying, I've never done that before, or I do it rarely. And so it's really exciting for us to see we're bringing some new voices to the table. Some folks that haven't necessarily, it's a lot of tried and true that come to the same meetings and things like that. We're getting some new voices. And again, we are tracking demographics and age and gender for every single one of our interactions, as much as people are comfortable sharing that information. And we are continuing, again, looking at our map, working with our committees to get the word out to make sure we were getting as representative and diverse a sampling of feedback as we can. Next slide, please. So now is your turn. We've done the talking. Now it is your turn to get engaged with us. I hope you guys have used Menti before. So what I'd like you to do, and let us know if you have any questions, is go to Menti. It's www.menti.com, and it's on the top of the slide. And then there is a code. So if you put in that code, the 25606878, what you will see is a series of questions. We've got 3 or 4. And these questions, just so you know, are the same questions we've been asking at our grassroots, in our online tools, and during our committees. And so we'd love to now ask them to you and compare our results and see what sort of feedback we're getting. So you've heard a lot of feedback from us. You've heard a lot of what we're trying to accomplish with this plan, what we're thinking about. But now from where you sit and from who you represent, what is it that you would like to see this plan accomplish? So please go on to Menti. If Menti's for some reason not working for you, please just put your comments in chat, or feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. But we'd love to get your thoughts on what would you want to see out of this plan? What would success look like from your perspective? for our long-term transportation plan. And I'll give everyone a quick minute to start filling that in, and let us know if you have any issues or challenges with the software.
And Tangier, I saw your question in the chat there. Great idea. Great idea. I think that's a really good suggestion to just go out to a transit station or a bus stop and, you know, ask our questions like a pop-up event we do at a park or a rec center. So Julie, let's definitely put our heads together and identify a good station. And Tangier, if you know one in particular that you would recommend, we're all ears for that recommendation.
Okay, cool. I'll think about it. And then, yeah, I was going to follow up with the question of whether or not there's room to ride the bus or the train and actually engage, you know, with people.
Yes, we have we've entertained that idea with RTD in the past. I know they have some bumpers around that, but let me work with our transit planning team. And I think that's a neat idea to explore too.
So Sam and Julie, just as a data gathering moment here, we're on Facebook Live. So we might get some feedback, and not necessarily good or bad. We might get some feedback and you wouldn't even know it from people that are watching live on Facebook.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Well, in light of that, Michelle, is there a document or like a transcript of that we could pull in after the fact, or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll
have both. I just wanted you to know this data you're collecting is not only for the board.
Oh, because people have that link.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. Well, thanks for the flag there. And Julie and I can kind of collaborate offline to compare the transcript to.
Absolutely. We don't want to lower, no stone unturned. We want all the great ideas. So thank you very much for that. And just as a reminder, denvermoveseveryone.com. We'd love everybody's participation in that, whether you're on Facebook Live or on our Zoom call as well. Thank you. So we've got some great feedback coming in. Hopefully you guys can see this word cloud. Equitable being right there in the center. That is some feedback that we're getting quite a bit from different groups. Really appreciate that. I love the 8 to 80 concept. You have a transportation system that's got to work for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old. I think this is great. Sustainable, quality, multimodal, safe options, sidewalks. This is all excellent. Excellent. So keep that going. We've got several other points that we'd like to gather your feedback on. So feel free to keep including that information. And then I think we'll go back to the main slide and start talking a little bit about our goals. Evan, am I handing it off to you next?
Yes. Thank you, Julie. I'll go ahead and pull up the presentation again. Sam, there are a few questions in the chat. One being whether this plan will be adopted by City Council.
Jen, would you like to field that one? Will this plan be adopted by City Council?
Yeah, sure, no problem. And so I got my camera working too, so I can see all you. Yeah, so great question, Chris. Thanks for that. Most of our DOTI plans are not adopted through City Council, although we will be working really closely with City Council and you guys, right, have been identified by some of our City Council members. So we have briefings actually scheduled, I think it is next week, Sam, to continue to engage with our council members. We have vetted a lot of the think tank members that we are engaging with City Council. So stay very, very close with them and think of it as a sponsorship more than an adoption, if that helps.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen, for that response. Is there a racial breakdown outside of people of color? Yes, we are tracking that at a more nuanced level. Has there been any thought on using an health equity assessment tool? Just a couple quick points there. We are collaborating with DDPHE as a partner on this plan, as well as other health experts within the city. We are also, DOTI has created a equity index that has some overlap with health indicators. So know that we are analyzing that specific topic and do have relationships with health experts in the city. And I'm just checking the clock a little bit, Michelle. Maybe if we could have 5 more minutes. I'm realizing there's a lot of good questions coming through, but we did want to cover this values to goals piece because there's another specific question we have for the committee.
Sounds good, Sam. We've been on the side adjusting the rest of the agenda, so go for it.
Okay, cool.
We can respond to questions as well, right, that we're not able to get to. We can respond to those and get those through Michelle so that you guys have, you know, responses to all your great ideas and questions. So thanks for that if we don't have time to address them here, Sam.
Okay, great. So we'll try to pick through the questions as we can, but Jen, yeah, great point. We can follow up with a response to the ones we don't get to. So Evan, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, we do want to kind of continue to hear from you. So we're going to prep you a little bit more on kind of where we are in the overall process of identifying the goals and the performance framework for this plan. But do keep those questions and chats and comments coming, and we will use Menti again here. As Sam mentioned, we're kind of building out the performance outline and the framework for this overall strategic plan for Denver Moves Everyone. Very similar to how we plan for our household budgets or businesses or others. We're really starting at that vision. What do we want Denver to be in 2050? We're also including key elements of outcomes. How can we boil this plan down to just a couple really meaningful statements that we can use to better communicate to residents, and then we can also kind of use as the dials to measure our performance. How are we going over time? Our goals provide our organizing framework, really kind of capturing, rooted in our community values, what's most important for us to address as an agency and in partnership with others. Those goals will be then in turn supported by those kind of critical objectives, metrics, again, so that we're tracking progress and kind of building out the details of this plan to make sure that we are prioritizing those investments at the right place and the right time to overall meet our goals. Right now in this early phase of the effort, we're really kind of focused on those first elements to vision to goals. We're going to kind of walk you through the process of how we got to our draft goal topics now. We did want to kind of reinforce that overall performance outline and framework for this plan is deeply rooted in what we're hearing from the public and our partners. And this is just kind of a broad illustration of really how we're using all the great input we're collecting through the activities that Julie spoke about, through meetings such like these, through partners, internal and external to the city, and some other kind of basic review of prior plans and the foundation of work that's already been established. So we're really kind of going through a deliberate and intentional process to link everything that we're hearing and seeing to those kind of vision and goals, so that we're, again, developing a plan that's deeply Denver and reflects our community values. To that end, we started off this project in some of our early engagement phases of really kind of asking what people cared about, what our residents valued, what they expected from the transportation system when they walked out their door in the morning. So these are the kind of results overall of an online tool, some of our grassroots engagement, some of our work with our think tank, which is kind of our external steering committee, where we've kind of tallied up. We asked those same questions about what we value as a community across all these different sources. And you can really see a lot of things do rise to the top, that there is a great deal of consistency, kind of looking at how our neighborhoods and streets feel, how comfortable they are, how safe they are. Climate change has really emerged as a key topic across how equitable our transportation system is, how affordable it is, and then how easy it is for us to get around by different modes and choices, and making sure that we're providing those options for all residents in all neighborhoods and all travel regardless. So we've gone through a significant exercise here in gathering hundreds of data points across all these values. We worked through kind of a methodology to weight public input, persons of color, our steering committees, so they're really kind of recognizing that residents and what they value are really driving how some of our goals were developed. That exercise really resulted in this kind of top 5 draft goal areas, where we've really been able to link each of those back to what we're directly hearing in terms of values. So again, the very foundations of our performance-based plan and our performance framework reflect our community values. These are kind of draft goal areas that are intended to be rather broad topic areas right now. We'll be working in the next couple phases of this effort to really identify our overall vision statement and really kind of vision statements within each of these goals, so we can better define the outcomes and what we intend when we talk about mobility, when we talk about safety, when we talk about sustainability, community, and quality. So we'll be providing more definition around those goals, but these are really intended to capture, again, everything we've heard from the community and everything that we care about as a city. Another element that we've heard and want to reflect is there's kind of an important word missing from some of those goal areas, and that's equity. We're taking the kind of national best practice and recommendations of not siloing equity into a goal area, but rather making sure that we're addressing it across all of our goals. And again, those supporting outcomes and metrics and investments that will support each of those goal areas. This will really allow us to look across everything that we're doing and integrate key equity actions within each of those goals. So really want to kind of emphasize that equity is that cross-cutting thread that's really going to link each of our goals together. We're also hearing some great cross-cutting themes around the need to really address public health, technology and innovation, economic development, and other key elements such as affordability, comfort, perception of the transportation system. So we're really right now in the process of gathering feedback and public reaction to these draft goals, and then kind of making sure that we're aligning again, not just what the values are, but what people think and believe should be the outcomes within each of these goals. So we'll probably integrate additional cross-cutting themes. We just really want to kind of emphasize that there's this framework provides a lot of opportunity to talk about everything that matters. We mentioned outcomes as part of kind of the key of this framework overall. This is something we can use, again, to communicate to the average resident, really what Denver Moves will achieve for anyone living, working, commuting through the city by 2050. These are kind of initial statements, but really kind of, what do we get out of this plan? We get a healthy city, safe streets, and connected places. And we have the opportunity to kind of link those outcomes, again, to key data points, key metrics, leverage some of the tools that Sam talked about being invested as part of this project, those dashboards, and really making those performance dials that we track over time to really make sure we're achieving those outcomes. So that was a quick overview of our overall draft goal areas. I think we wanted to kind of use Menti again. So if you have that open on your smartphone or your computer, we're going to go ahead and flip over to that and get a kind of a quick take on whether you see your values and yourself reflected in those broader goal areas. And then when we've got time, we'll answer some of the great questions that are coming in. So please do take a moment to open up the Menti app again. It should be primed and ready to go. And just let us know if you agree or disagree on those goal topics.
Yeah, and as that's coming in, Evan, I'll just take some time to kind of pop through some of these questions. So absolutely, we can share the race breakdown data of who we are hearing from. And I saw someone also may have noted that they would be willing to help us to increase participation from folks of all different backgrounds. So we would welcome any ideas or suggestions on that front. Also interest in the racial equity toolkit. And what we'll do is I'll work with Michelle to provide a kind of a follow-up description of that. And if there's any additional questions, we're using Denver Moves Everyone to test and kind of pilot the racial equity toolkit, which is really broader than Denver Moves Everyone. It includes recommendations and strategies, best practices to integrate equity into transportation plans broadly, but given how many aspects of our system that this plan is touching, it's a really good case study to implement it through. So we're constantly getting lessons learned, what's working better, what still needs to be improved. And to that point of just always trying to do a better job. So we'll make sure to share some information on that. If there's any more questions, we'd be happy to discuss that more in the future.
All right, well, again, thank you for the agreements. You can kind of see we've got generally support from this group. We understand there's a lot more definition that needs to be provided to those goals, particularly when it comes to things like equity and really how we address that through our objectives, through our metrics. We'll touch on that a little bit at the close of this presentation when we talk about our state of the system report, which is kind of our existing conditions, where do we stand today, and how we're able to kind of use some of the data that we do have availability to illuminate issues across each of those goals. We're also kind of going out and asking the same exact question about whether values are reflected in these goals to the public, to our partners through our committee approach, and generally seeing great agreement overall. Where we are seeing disagreement, we're getting great emphasis and ideas on how we can better communicate these goals. think we wanted to brainstorm with you a little bit more and kind of ask a second question here, which is also what we're asking to the public now, but looking at the vision that will guide Denver Moves Everyone. So we're just kind of wanted to open up to this group. If you could just pick one word or two or three, where do you think Denver should be in 2050? Where do you think we should be in terms of the future of transportation? If you can just think of one word, go ahead and type that into your phone or your Menti, and we'll get a little word cloud going here of really what we want to achieve together. All right, lots of ideas coming in. Innovative, accessible, multimodal, safe, convenient and easy, frequent, bike lanes everywhere. Affordable, a great word that we are hearing a lot from the public right now. Cheaper fares is kind of in that vein. Fewer cars, carbon free, kind of echoes a lot of that sustainability and emphasis on climate change that we are hearing from a variety of different groups. Connections, accountable, that's certainly something we want to achieve through this planning effort. Pleasurable, we're really excited to see more and more words come up when we're doing this exercise with the public and our partners that really try to make transportation accessible, making sure that we're kind of using the right words to describe, again, what we expect from transportation, whether it should be delightful or great spaces or pleasurable. So great ideas coming in here. We really appreciate that. All right, well, you can certainly continue to use that Menti app or again, chat or question at any time. We just wanted to kind of note that we are taking all of that input, yours included from what we're hearing from the public and our partners about those one words for our future vision. And this will really help inform that vision statement that guides Denver Moves Everyone and really kind of illuminates our mobility goals. The word cloud you're seeing now on the screen is what we've been hearing from over 700, 800 responses from the general public and residents who have hit denvermoveseveryone.com and told us what they think. So you'll see a lot of echoes of what this group and this board thinks is important too in terms of sustainability, accessibility, convenience, safety, car-free, bike friendly, a lot of great concurrence there on really what we want to accomplish as a future vision through this planning effort. All right, with that, we certainly do appreciate your comments. And again, we're taking that input and being very deliberate in how that's being used to inform each element of the performance outline and each phase of this project. So your input is very important and will be absolutely integrated into everything that we do moving forward.
Yeah, so we have a couple slides, but they're kind of recaps. So in just looking at time here, I do wonder, does anyone from the committee have a question that they would like to ask us or anything that could be clarified?
Alicia?
Hi, I'm sorry. I put a lot of questions in the chat, but I just wanted to kind of clarify my thoughts around some of the questions that I was asking. Oftentimes we look at Denver when we're creating these plans, and several different plans from various departments have been created similarly, and we always see this inverted L. And in that, we typically see the Northeast Denver and Northwest Denver areas that are oftentimes left behind when it comes to these plans. And so I wanted to make sure that while I appreciate having the racial background in terms of people of color, specifically the African American and Latino and some of our other populations, just understanding how you have intentionally engaged those communities, and are there more cultural ways that you might be able to connect with those populations by, connecting with some of the folks in this group or others. And then also working more closely with, I know that with your committees and partnerships, from what I saw on the screen, were primarily representative of city agencies or quasi-governmental agencies or something along those lines. I'm wondering if there is more of an opportunity to, through your grassroots efforts, work more closely with some of those groups that are more knitted and on the ground with folks that are really highly dependent on public transport or transportation within the city and county of Denver. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was around equity. And I want to make sure this stays at the top of our radar in terms of, we often utilize the word equity, and it's being utilized across various organizations, even my own organization, city agencies, worldwide, nationwide, et cetera. But we don't have a measurement for that. We're not saying, okay, this is how we're going to benchmark or measure our impact across equity. We just say we're going to include it in every aspect of our project. Well, what does that actually mean? And how are we working to ensure that we're achieving something in equity? And so just want you all to keep that in mind and actually develop or utilize some of the metrics that have been established. There are a lot of different equity tools. And I know that as a part of the Board of Public Health, we have used equity tools, and there's a lot of research that have been put in tools that exist, or even if you need to create your own specific to transportation, but really not just saying that we're going to have equity in every aspect, but what are we looking for as we're putting equity in every aspect, and how are we measuring that?
Yeah, is it Alicia? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, Alicia.
Alicia, well, foremost, thank you so much. Really well said. I picked up, I think, 3 questions there, but I think 1 and 2 are kind of related, at least the way that I'll approach the answer. So 1 is, how are we being intentional that we are engaging people of color and understanding, the Black population, Latino population, as well as our Asian population and the others that comprise that term. We are coordinating with what we call our racial equity team, who's really focused on conducting that outreach. And we just completed a series of 5 what we call creative input sessions, where we incentivized just residents to participate, and we leveraged community-based organizations and their networks, and our team lead, who has specific connections in those communities, to encourage people to participate in those events. And we went through similar content that we had tonight, but we did, kind of take it up a level and just asked about, what are your experiences with transportation? What does equity mean to you? And then when we talked about the goals, we actually asked, what outcomes would you like to see? What does mobility mean to you, and what racial equity outcomes? What help us to kind of define what that means, so that it's not, DOTI at our level determining those racial equity outcomes, but we're, using people's perspectives to help shape and influence them. So so the creative input sessions we just went through on the goals topic, we'll do those again when we get to the next phase, where we hope to have a conversation around, scenario planning or the future of transportation. If these are our goals, how do we get to those futures? I will say, though, that we're still trying to do a better job in that space. And if you have ideas, or if you'd like to connect offline and would be willing to share your time, we would be excited to connect with you. I did want to affirm that the slide that we showed with the partner organizations, we really just wanted to affirm collaboration is critical to the success of this plan, because DOTI only has so much purview over the things within the city that make our city, it is what it is. And we just, through Denver Moves Everyone, we're being really intentional about making partnerships so that we can scale the influence of this plan across all city agencies. In addition to that, we have numerous committees external to the city that are comprised of people from all different perspectives, organizations, community-based organizations. And we actually have, last week we had our first, what we call a Diverse and Inclusive Voices Committee meeting, which is more targeted in terms of organizations that work with specific populations that have historically been less represented in transportation planning processes. And we're continuing to work with that group to understand methods that are better suited to reaching their populations, and then taking that into our team and saying, okay, let's go try that. Because I think, you know, evidence in the chat here, going to a transit station, and that's good feedback for us, and we can act on that. And so we're just trying to make sure we're asking enough folks about better processes that we can use. But to answer your question, we have a much broader coalition of organizations that we've partnered with through this project beyond the city agencies.
And then I just mentioning, I don't know if you had anything else to add in terms of an equity tool, or how are you assessing that?
How are we? Yes.
Oh, sorry, this is Evan with the consultant team again. Alicia, I think you're absolutely right about a lot of great research that is out there, a little bit less so on transportation. I think we do have the opportunity through our upcoming State of the System report, which is kind of this existing conditions, to really use data to tell that story as much as possible. So we will be looking at things like affordability. You know, what are transportation costs, you know, per neighborhood. We'll be able to kind of parse data as much as we can to understand really who relies on public transit by income, by race, ethnicity, by gender. Really kind of leveraging DOTI's equity index, which really does kind of identify those neighborhoods and areas, so that we're overlaying things like the state of our infrastructure, the quality of sidewalks and roads and bridges by our neighborhoods, kind of looking at making sure we're kind of looking at things like air pollution and heat index, again, by those neighborhoods. And then through the travel demand model, we have the opportunity to provide a lot of kind of key metrics on travel time, on job accessibility, on destination accessibility, on kind of that access and convenience and ease to travel choices. By residents' demographics as much as possible. So I think we'll have the opportunity to really establish some equity benchmarks so that we are saying there are equitable transportation outcomes for all residents across the city, and this is how we're kind of looking at that. So a work in progress, but we do have data and we have some ideas that we can really kind of share with this group moving forward to actually really measure, assess, and track equity and equitable outcomes through this effort.
Thank you. That's awesome. Another tool that I'll just mention is that there's an organization, I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but it's called Policy Link. And it's a nationwide organization that really did a study around various cities across the country as it relates to transportation and transit and equitable policies and systems and approaches for that. And so they have some very specific tools that they have created as a result, and that might be something to have in your toolbox.
Wonderful. We'll definitely take a look at that.
Yeah, thank you so much for those questions. And just I can certainly follow up in the chat and our note summary, but we are understanding those neighborhoods that we don't historically reach in transportation plans as much, both through our online tool where the gaps there, but also just based on our knowledge of doing transportation planning across the city. And so that's where we're really targeting those grassroots engagement opportunities, either going to a park, going to a rec center, going to a community event that we can table at in those neighborhoods within what we kind of think of the inverted L, but also other neighborhoods that we're not getting as much feedback from, and we're continually evaluating the success of those tools. So there is a neighborhood focus to our approach as well as a demographic focus.
So given the time, unless there's anything else burning, perhaps we can all express some appreciation to the Denver Moves Everyone team and hope that this is not the last that the group will be interfacing with you all, I'm sure. If it makes sense to go off screen share so we can do that, that would be great.
Totally, yeah. Thank you, Jacob. We appreciate the time that you've all allotted us and giving us a little bit extra time beyond our allocated agenda item. Please do keep in touch with us. We'll send this presentation to the group, but lots of ways to get involved. bit.ly Denver Moves Everyone or www.denvermoveseveryone.com. Look forward to working with you all and meeting again in the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great evening. We'll be back soon. Take care.
Thank you. Well, now we have a really important task that Marisol is going to lead us through, which is to ensure that leadership for the group is established. So Marisol.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize, I missed your meeting last week. I was on an airplane. But you all had nominated, a number of you were nominated to be the interim co-chairs of the group until the formal elections happen in a few months. But we have 5 individuals who have accepted the nomination of co-chair. So you will be electing 2 of them tonight to be your trusty leaders, at least for the next several months. So we have Antonio, Alicia, Ray, Aileen, and Manny. So those are the 5 people that accepted. Some of you were nominated and graciously said, I am very busy and I cannot take on a leadership. We completely understand. So those are your 5. So we're going to go in order. What we would like is, I know some of you know each other really well and some of you are just getting to know each other for the first time. So we wanted to give everyone just like a minute to 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be super formal, but just to talk about who you are, what you're coming at this, work, what your passion around this work is, and why you want to be co-chair for the next several months. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And then at the end, what will happen is you will get to choose 2 of the 5 to move forward with. So we would have started with Antonio. Antonio is on his honeymoon, so we have to forgive him for that, I believe. That is a good excuse. But we would like, I know Michelle knows a little bit about him based on his resume and some information she's pulled. So Michelle, do you just want to give us a little bit of a background on who Antonio is?
And just a little thumbnail. I think we've all enjoyed working with Antonio the last couple months. So I don't think he's a, shrinking violet. So we all know who he is. We'll give you a little bit of background. He has his master's degree from Georgetown University in urban planning and policy. He has worked for the last 5 years in urban planning. And then before that, very much community driven. So he's a community planner in DC around food and equity. So that kind of gives you the background of who he was when he came into this and why he wanted to be part of this transportation and infrastructure advisory board. That's all I know. Unless somebody else knows Antonio better than that, that's what his resume gave me.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so that was Antonio. Next up is Alicia. Pesky mute button. How about Alicia, while you're trying to, oh, there it is. You got it.
I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute myself. I kept clicking the button and it would not unmute. So hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm Alicia Brown. I am a mayoral appointee. I actually work for the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities, and I am our senior vice president, but I also lead our Be Well Health and Wellness initiative. My passion is really around working with communities to uplift equity and to ensure that everyone has access to transportation, to health, and to all the things that they need to live a healthy life and to have a great quality of life. I have been doing this work for the last 20 years in Denver. I also serve on the board of public health for the city and county of Denver, as well as I'm on the Racial Equity Council that was mentioned before. I am really engaged in transportation. At our foundation, we are a part of, or the Northeast Denver Transportation Connections is a part of our foundation, or an initiative of our foundation. And the idea of really thinking about how people utilize transportation and how to make transportation equitable to all people, I think is very important, and I'm very passionate about it, as well as really thinking about making our transportation system more pedestrian friendly. And so really thinking about how and what that looks like for all the communities across Denver.
Thank you, Alicia. All right, Aileen.
Hey everyone, Aileen Mccallum. I live in Southeast Denver. Not a native, but I spent a lot of years in Denver. I went to the University of Denver, and I've been working in Denver for the last 18 years. Almost, well, entirely in the world of planning and mobility. First at a small nonprofit in Cherry Creek called Transportation Solutions. Some of you guys may be familiar with that organization with Stuart Anderson. And now for the past 15 and a half years at the Downtown Denver Partnership. So at the partnership today, I oversee all of our member programming and really work to lead programs that educate the community and our members about why cities are important. Before this role where I've assumed responsibility for all of our programming, I also spent about 14 years leading the mobility, or not 14, because I've been at the partnership for 15 years, about 11 years at the partnership leading the mobility work. And so when you see the really vast network of bike lanes in downtown, I don't want to mistake and take too much responsibility for all those. But when I started at the partnership, there was one bike lane. So now we have a lot of bike lanes in downtown, and I like to think that I had a little part of that along with a lot of other great advocates in our community. So my work, I think it's important for everyone to understand that even though I have worked at the partnership for so long, I try to also dedicate my time in helping other areas of Denver. And I've been a big proponent of advocating for mobility infrastructure and specifically bike lanes in my own community. And we've gotten some really great mobility options to schools in Southeast Denver and to the light rail and just connecting to the larger network. So I would love to help this group, help guide this group for the first 6 months or so. I think I can offer some additional perspective. I always say I'm not representing the partnership, but I've worked there long enough that I definitely have that business perspective in the back of my head, and I'm happy to share some alternative viewpoints. And I'm also a mom to this one who loves to Zoom bomb my meetings, and another one who's running around my house somewhere. So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Aileen. How about Ray? Would you like to go next?
Raymond Gutierrez, represent District 3, West Denver. I work for a little organization everybody might have heard of called RTD. I'm a light rail supervisor there. I've been there 8 years, 4 as a driver, 4 as a supervisor. I think I would make a great co-chair due to the fact that I've actually been there in the trenches. I see what's going on. I live in a working class community, which is majority Latino, which, unfortunately, since Pena left office, I don't think there's really been too much Latino representation in the city as much. I would like to work to change that and to give a voice to everybody here in the neighborhood who's working class. Most of us here, myself included, at least in my neighborhood in Westwood, don't have college degrees. We're just 9 to 5 working class people, and I feel like our people are underrepresented. And I think I would make a great co-chair due to the fact that I'm in the trenches.
Great, thank you, Raymond. And last but not least, Manny.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Manuel Zubia or Manny. I currently work for, a company as a global HR program manager. So it's more of a developer, data mining, so more on the data side. I'm also president of my community's HOA. I think we are making very good progress because of our approach and how we communicate with the community. I'm interested in this role basically because of my ability to communicate with the people. At work, I'm usually referred as the ambassador of goodwill. Listening is key, and attended University of Texas at El Paso. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I think I would represent my community in a positive way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Manny. Okay, at this time, Michelle is going to open up a quick poll here. Remember, this is just an interim position. We're going to have co-chairs for the next several months until formal elections are held and bylaws are created and all those fun things. Michelle has dropped the Survey Monkey in the survey. So if you could just rank your top 2 choices, we will go ahead and get those calculated. So go ahead and do that. And while we're doing that, Jacob, do you want to go ahead and move on to bylaws and we'll announce?
So we're now shifting while you're wrapping up your ranking. And then we'll circle back to the election results at the end, as Marisol said, to the bylaws. And essentially, we have worked through a lot of that together. We have some mostly wrapped up conversations and some things we haven't even started yet in terms of the bylaws. So we're going to just flash the bylaws document where we've put in some of the discussions about voting and informing the agenda and other pieces that we've talked about along with several others. And then we need some volunteers from the group to be able to form a bylaws committee. So we'll be asking you that. We'll also have it in the survey so that a few of you can join. We do suggest that if one of the co-chairs, one or both of the co-chairs can participate, that would be great as well. So I'm going to share the screen now. And just to walk you through, this is the right role and purpose. We talked about the sandbox, so that's in here. We've talked about board structure a little bit, but we imagine that you're going to want to be forming some ad hoc committees, like a bylaws committee, and other committees. Maybe there's a committee working specifically on some components of Denver Moves Everyone, for instance. And so that should be captured here. Membership, who are the members, committee members, staff liaisons. You've asked for who are the staff supporting this on a monthly basis, every time, etc. How we go about selecting members, what that looks like, the duties of the co-chairs and the staff liaisons, application and selection process, how that all works. And then terms is really important. Quorum, number of meetings, transparency, meeting norms, all of those things are in here. And then that decision-making process that we spent some time with. So those are the key components. I'm wondering if there are any critical components in here that people would feel is missing. Let me just minimize that top window. We haven't heard much from you other than the occasional, other than app and a couple questions, and I can't fill out that survey. So any thoughts about missing components in here before we talk about who wants to join this ad hoc committee?
Could you blow it up a little bit?
Yeah, let me do that. Is that better?
And just as an FYI, this is definitely a template. There's not a lot in there. There's some standards, but then the committee can come back and really fill it in and then be able to walk through what they would recommend.
And then I'll scroll down a little bit.
So just to be clear, this is just an outline. There's no additional text later on, like suggested text.
There is some suggested
Okay.
text in here. So like we already have the text that we've talked about in here.
Okay.
Like this is the sandbox that we talked about, the board structure pieces. There's nothing really in here about what committees you want. So that's new. But then when we talk about membership and eligibility, some of these things we've talked about, some we haven't, but as some starting language, there's some pieces in here for the group to work through. Does that make sense, Aileen? Yeah, I'll just scroll through this quickly so you can get a sense.
I think having some of it written is less.
Yeah, and like our meeting norm,
it's less imposing.
we discussed
Right.
is in here, and quorum, which we've discussed, attendance. This is that decision-making framework we discussed. So that's what's in here so far.
Also, it's a lot easier for us to leave like the committees not named at this point, because it's a lot easier to add to a bylaw than change a bylaw. So we want to make sure that you guys have enough flexibility over the first couple months to be adding. We want to have the structure in there, but if we all vote on it and lock it in, it's hard to change a bylaw.
So any other thoughts about key components that we should be incorporating in here that we haven't yet? And obviously the bylaws committee can add to this as they're diving in.
I just had a quick concern, and it's not necessarily related to what you're showing, Jacob. It's more just, I know in our previous conversations around bylaws, Kurt Morrison and Antonio were our two most vocal people, and I just want to call out that they're not here, and we might want to find a way to include their voices at some point, because I think they had a lot of thoughts.
Michelle, I see you nodding, and Michelle will reach out to them on this.
I actually think that's a great flag, Michelle. If you wouldn't mind flagging those that are not in attendance today, if we can just ask them if they would like to join the committee.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so not seeing any ideas there. Who would like to, and we have a spot if you need to think through this a little bit, but it would be great to have at least one or two of you so we know that we have a bylaws committee to think through this. We'll reach out to those missing members, and there's a spot for you on the form as well if you're not volunteering here, but it would be great to just see who can commit to a couple meetings, perhaps between now and the next session, to work through this and get it fine-tuned a bit, sort of at your joint schedules as they allow. I see a whole bunch of people jumping to speak. Brian.
I put something in chat already, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. All right. Anyone else going to join Brian? And you can say, Brian, we'll make sure you're not all alone. We don't want to leave Brian all alone on this, but you can also say on the form at the end here. Alan, thank you, Alan. All right, so 2 makes a committee, at least. So thanks to
I'll
Brian,
be helping
Alan,
with this too.
and
I'll be
Michelle.
helping. I'll be helping with 2, and then whoever becomes the board chair will make sure one of them has the opportunity to be part of it too.
Sounds good. So we sort of shortened this up because of the time constraints that we thought we were under, but we have about 4 minutes before next step in closing. I'm wondering, Marisol, if we're ready, and Michelle, if we're ready to talk about the co-chairs.
Yes.
Set?
I'm ready. Our 2 co-chairs are going to be Antonio and Raymond.
Great. Congratulations.
So Raymond, you're on now, and when Antonio comes back from his honeymoon, we'll get together and we'll talk about, and in the next steps, we'll talk about agenda items. So it won't be you're creating that, but we'll talk about next steps and kind of where we're going forward.
Great. A few congratulations. Awesome.
Raymond, we can't hear you. I think you're.
Oh, sorry.
muted.
I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I look forward to kicking this process off. And again, Antonio, I mean, that guy is pretty awesome, and looking forward to working with him as co-chair. And thank you, everybody. I greatly appreciate it. I really do.
So Raymond and Antonio will be leading the next meeting, of course. And Raymond, I hope this was okay, but we have a spot in this end of the meeting survey, not only for the bylaws, but also for you to share some agenda priorities so that we can start to gather that for the group moving forward. Chris is nodding his head there. And I think that'll be an important process for you all to establish how are we gathering information on the agenda. There might be time during meetings to do it, but we thought for this one, having a survey where people could express that would make it easy for the two of you, if that makes sense. Yeah, great. Great. So, Marisol, am I missing anything on the bylaws that I should have gone over? No.
No, we're good. I think Michelle has a number of next steps that she wants to go over with the group. So yeah, I think we're good.
Awesome.
So I think that at next steps, I think this would be a nice thing to have at the end of all the meetings to make sure that we're not missing anything or anything besides the agenda that came up that you want to bring on to the next meeting or anything. One thing that I've been hearing, at least from council and from several of the board members, is public comment. We have not done that to date. I don't know if you've participated in public comment at council or with Parks and Recs advisory board or with DDPHE's advisory board, but public comment is not required from advisory board, but I wanted to throw it out to see if it's something that this board would like to do. And how it normally is we'd be on a webinar, not a Zoom and a Facebook, and we'd have a certain portion of time in the beginning of the meeting to open it up to public, and they'll register ahead of time to talk about the issues that they want to speak with you. So I wanted to throw this out and see if this is something the board wanted to move forward with or not. Does anybody have a strong opinion either way?
And if I may, while you have us for 15 more minutes, we find that public comment is really powerful when it's about something in particular. So when you're working on providing recommendations around Denver Moves Everyone or whatever your focal points then it would be really powerful to have public comment there. So just as an FYI, to think about when and how you have public comment, how you make that inclusive. It's clear from the comments today that you don't necessarily only want to be reaching out to those who have the time and knowledge to show up at these and provide some public comment. So public comment's not just testimony in front of this group. That's my 2 cents, if it's helpful. Sorry, Michelle, and we have Alan and Chris who have questions as well.
Okay, let's start with Chris. Go ahead.
Just how would you manage having the public comment to this group be recorded and accounted for with the groups and the consultants that we heard from earlier today for Denver Moves Everyone? It seems that they're very, proud and engaged in gathering public comment. What's the purpose or value that it would bring to this group over?
Did anyone want to answer? I mean, anybody, the public comment would not be engaging with, they're not reviewing the agenda. It would not be engaging with the speakers that come in because we just can't, that's not a live meeting. It would be overwhelming. It really would be the first 15 minutes of a meeting, having people come in and give a couple minutes of whatever is happening, or if you go off of what Jacob is saying, something that pertains to what we're going to be talking about in the agenda, because I post the agendas. I would select, or I would, with the chairs, select who's going to speak, because you can't, I promise you, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to want to speak. So you have to kind of cull it down to, you know, I'll tell you, Parks and Recs, they spent a year and a half talking about geese, and they had no control over geese, but they talked about geese for the longest time. And so I want to make sure that you guys want the public comment, but it's something that will be beneficial to you.
I guess that's the crux of my question and concern, is that, you know, I imagine we're going to have work to do once we get through this, you know, administrative phase. And I'm just concerned about the time suck of that and the value that we would receive from it. Thank you.
I believe, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Alicia.
I was going to say hi. We have public comment, and what has really been helpful in receiving public comment on the Board of Public Health is really having a perspective of how the decisions that we are making are impacting those on the ground, or ways in which information that can help us to inform whatever decisions that we are making. And I think if we set some parameters around at a specific time, maybe I think 2 minutes or 3 minutes of public per person for public comment, I think that information has been significantly helpful when it came to informing how we make decisions on the Public Health Board. And I think it provides an opportunity also for residents to feel like they've been heard.
Build on it. I do like having public comment, but I would ask that we would do it at the end of the meetings. That way, if someone does start to hijack, I can only go so far.
Alan's had his hand raised for a while.
Yeah, I would echo Alicia. So I think it's a great opportunity to get community feedback. The one point I wanted to bring up, I brought up with Michelle, but wanted to share with the group is Councilman Sandoval mentioned that it would be nice if council members could participate in public comment. Us doing this meeting on a Monday makes it challenging for them to do that, since their council meetings and their public comment is around the same time that we're meeting right now. So perhaps for future meetings, we could reconsider the time and day that we're meeting. For example, with Parks and Rec Advisory Board, Councilman Sandoval participated in the public comment for the renaming of La Raza Park. And I think that was really valuable, not only to hear from the community, but to hear from her as well as one of our leaders in this part of town.
Jake has his hand up as well. And I believe that was on Michelle's list to discuss, Alan, as well, the timing.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what everyone says. I think it is extremely important in what this board does to hear public comment. I do have some concerns. A lot of them are inspired by experience observing the Pratt board and concerns that I've seen with how that is managed. I definitely would advocate for at least a time limit, but I do have questions about whether it, as in favor of public comment as I am, does it make sense to have live public comment for every meeting that we have? Is something I'd be curious about exploring. Maybe we can have slightly longer, but every other or something like that. I'd be definitely interested in exploring that. And then I would like to see if there's room for a written public comment to be submitted that we could just have on file. I think I'm worried about just access, people having night shifts, all sorts of ways that might interfere with actually appearing at the time. I didn't have city council in mind, but they certainly, if we offered a written public comment, would have that option too. But I definitely want us to be really thoughtful about how we manage this, because I do have concerns about making it hijackable.
Great. So Michelle, it sounds like, and for Raymond and Antonio, to think about how to incorporate public comment based off of this feedback in future meetings will be important. And Jake, when you were talking about written public comment being part of it, I saw a lot of heads nodding as well.
Sounds good.
Michelle.
I don't know if that necessarily means public comment will start in October, but it sounds like we want to do the board wants to do something like this. We just have to make sure that it works for this board, and to learn from the best practices of the other boards that that participate in public comment.
Michelle,
Right? Sound good? And the next item that I had on next steps was we lost one of our, well, that's a very sad way to say it. One of our members has decided not to continue, Holly Pixler. She was our freight expert. The vaccine mandate did not sit well with her, so she decided to pull her name off the board. So we have one of the mayoral appointee positions is open. I realized that at last meeting or the one before, there was talk around having someone from the ADA community represented on the board, which we don't have. I mean, we do, but we don't necessarily have someone that is from, that is an expert in that area. So I wanted to throw that out to see, because, this will be a mayoral appointee, which is something that we have to kind of go to the mayor and lobby for. I don't think he'd have a problem with this, but I wanted to make sure that the board would be, this would be an area the board would want us to, try to recruit somebody for the 19th slot that's open. I don't think anybody would have objections to this, but I wanted to make sure that everyone was okay with us lobbying with the mayor that this is who we want to be, to focus on.
Who we want or the position we want?
The position, the skill set, the position,
right.
And I would go to the head of boards and commissions and have her start kind of throwing the net out. If anybody has any links, because you guys have a vast, expansive network, much more than I think the city would have. If you have anybody that you have in mind, or someone that you can put me in touch with, or put kind of boards and commissions in touch with, that would be great. Just shoot me an email.
And testing my active listening skills, this is transportation expert?
No, this would,
cargo expert?
No, we kind of, that was a very, very difficult position to fill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be freight anymore.
Okay.
It's going to be, we kind of pivoted to say, we heard from the board here saying we don't have anybody representing ADA. So it really kind of looks at, instead of having a specific transportation expert, it would be someone that would bring that expertise to the board from a Americans Disability background.
I see.
Whether they're that's what they do for a living, or whether that's what they live, whatever it is. If anybody has any recommendations, if not, I wanted to make sure that it was okay that we went to the mayor and said we'd like to have somebody represent on the board, and this is the one slot that we have right now.
Understood. Thank you.
Sounds like we're okay with that. And the last thing was what Alan brought up. It seems like Mondays work, but I also would like to entertain the thought that what Alan said about council would like to be part. I mean, council was responsible for 13 of you being on the board. So if you have connections with council, I don't want to lock them out of the board just because we're having the meeting on the same night the council is. So I'd like to, and we don't have to do this at this meeting, but what I'd like to do is kind of revisit the best time that we could meet that would get most people there. I'll probably do that with a survey or something, although my last survey with you guys was dismal. I had to do it like 3 times. But what I'll try to do is be smarter about the surveys. What I would recommend, and if it's okay with everybody, we continue having the October one on our calendars. And then what I'll try to do in the next week or so is work with the team, work with the board to see if there's any other date that works as well as this one does. And then we can choose that. But just keeping the October one linked in at least ensures us that we have a meeting in October. Is everybody okay with that? So the goal is to try to find a time that works. And this would be throughout the extension of this board. If we have to move it, we move it. But I think what Alan brought up about council not having to be able to access to be part of this, I think is short-sighted. So I'd like to look at another date for us. And that's all I had on my next steps. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? Besides how sad we're going to be with Jacob and Marisol leaving us?
You didn't need us today.
Well, you say that until things go, yeah, and then we need you. So, Nick, do you have anything to say?
I don't. I think this was good discussion. I appreciate everyone's participation, especially with that Denver Moves everyone conversation. And that's just the beginning, and excited about our officers and excited about our upcoming meetings.
Okay. I think we might be done.
Take that survey, please.
Please. Well, and then Raymond, I'll get in touch with you when Antonia gets back, and we'll start putting agenda items together for the next meeting and get that out to everybody so we can kind of decide on what the next meeting is going to be like.
Jacob, I don't think we've chatted out the survey yet.
I did earlier.
Oh, okay.
But it's
Everyone,
up
did
there.
anyone not get the survey? Please click on it.
Let me send it again because it's sort of up there.
Here we go.
Yeah.
You got it? Yeah.
Okay, I got it now.
Click on, even if you don't fill it out right now, click on it and you can fill it out tomorrow for us, okay? It's been such a pleasure getting to know all of you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Good
Wishing
luck.
you the best.
We look forward to hearing your work.